Right. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another installment of Reading Rewards the Reader, in which we are rereading the Bible. And today we're going into the book of Job. So you can see we've been doing the Bible in chronological order, not cover to cover. And that's different, right? Cover to cover, you read all the books of the Bible the way that they are in whatever Bible you have or access on the internet. When we're doing it chronologically, we're following a specific order that takes us through the historical events of the Bible and introduces us to the characters, the narratives, in kind of the historical fashion that they were introduced originally. So we have been in Genesis, and we did the creation story. We did Cain and Abel. We did the fall. We did Cain and Abel. We got into the generations following Cain and Abel, leading us to humanity turning wicked. Right. The Bible, I think, said that God was observing humanity and saying that the intentions of humans were evil all the time. And so he decided to hit that reset button and to start over, just wipe everything out. And that's what he did with the flood. He basically started all over again, this experiment, right, of humanity and of the world, life on earth. And what came out of that was Noah's family. And so Noah's family was preserved through that, according to this. And he got off the ark and him and his family started a new, the human race, essentially, I guess. And what happened after that is, a few things, some drama here and there, but a lot of names, a lot of like very large numbers of years that people lived, apparently, according to the narrative text. And then we got to the introduction of a character called Abram. And so right there at Abram, we are going to hit pause in Genesis, and we're going to switch over to Job. And so before I go any further, I want to give you one bit of information about me, and that is I am not a pastor or a biblical scholar, or I'm just a guy who wants to read the Bible. And as we've talked about on previous installments here, the reason we want to read the Bible is because it's interesting. It's stuck around for a long time in human history, and it seems to have made a difference in the world that I now inhabit and that we inhabit together. And so I want to know why that is. I want to read it. I want to see what the themes are, what the messages are. We're going to read it chronologically, which is what I opened up talking about. And we are going to basically take it at face value. We're going to look at the themes. We're going to ask ourselves, why was this book loved so much? And why is this book hated and reviled? And is there anything that we can learn from it or apply to modern life today? So that's what we're doing. And again, I am not like a theologian. I'm not, I've obviously heard things, but I am not someone that you should trust for, strong foundational biblical teaching. I'm just a guy who wants to look at this, read it, and kind of walk away with a common sense understanding of it at this point. So, with all that said, I'm going to mess up names. I'm going to say some stuff that might sound weird, but check it out. I mean, if this is interesting, look into it. I have heard, just as we get into the book of Job, right, it's this piece of, I think they call it like wisdom literature, and it's like a story. It's just a long story about this guy who is supposedly really righteous, meaning that he does what's right, and he's okay with God, and he follows God's laws. And then this character called Satan is introduced, who comes in and basically says, hey, this guy is good only because you have blessed him so much, God. And God says, fine, give him some tests, throw some stuff his way and see how he reacts. And Satan and God kind of make a wager, which is pretty fascinating. We'll get into all that. But one thing I heard a few years ago that was kind of helpful to me in understanding this book is it's just that. It's kind of a story. It's kind of a parable. Scholars, I think, are divided on whether it or not it actually happened. Whether Job was actually a historical person, whether God and Satan interacted in this specific way. I'm not sure that's super important, to be honest, like whether that happened or not. I think faithful Christians could probably still, that doesn't really detract anything from what Job is saying, the book of Job, whether it's a parable or whether it actually happened, just from the way it's written. But likewise, if it is real, I'm not sure that adds too much anyway. The themes are pretty apparent. So that's enough introduction. That's more than I usually give. So let's stop with that and get to reading. Job chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters, so 10 kids. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did continually. Interesting. So this is just kind of underlining how righteous of a man Job is, this character, right? That he not only is he concerned with his own standing before God, he is interceding on behalf of his kids. Hey, maybe they've done something wrong during these parties, during these feasts. I'm going to make sacrifices to God to kind of make up for anything they might have done that I don't even know about, right? Weird. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now, I'll pause here to note Satan is translated adversary. So we think of Satan as like maybe a red character with horns and a pitchfork and a pointy tail. It's not really the image here. Satan is an adversary back in the Jewish translation, the original Torah, and it's actually not something that's terrible. We have a different kind of modern rendition of the devil and of Satan that's nefarious and that is set up against God's people, things like that. That's not the image necessarily in this book, right? So keep that in mind. Although the things that he starts to do are not awesome. Let's keep going. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, right? So they're doing those parties that they were doing before. And there came a messenger to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." And while he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you." That's horrendous, right? I also want to point out, it really does read like a story. Like, think of a storybook kind of tale, right? Bad thing, bad thing, bad thing, just stack on top of each other. Almost comical in its telling. Job arose and tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell on the ground and worshipped. And he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. One note that popped out to me here in the first chapter is one of the terrible things that happened to Job's servants, belongings, and children. It says the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep, right? And that is not accurate. That would not be what happened, right? Because God gave the power over to the adversary, to Satan, to do what he wanted to do. But it's still described as fire from God, fire from heaven, perhaps. Satan attacks Job's health. Chapter 2. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason." Okay, that might go back to the fire of God thing, right? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand. Only spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" In all this Job did not sin with his lips. Job's 3 friends. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. Can't imagine. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said a man is conceived. Let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. That night, let thick darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful cry enter it. Let those who curse it, who curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Let the stars of its dawn be dark. Let it hope for light, but have none, nor see the eyelids of the morning, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breasts that I should nurse? For then I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept, then I would have been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not as a hidden stillborn child, as infants who never see the light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to bitter soul, who long for death, but it comes not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes instead of my bread, and my groanings are poured out like water. For the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I'm not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes. So Job's circumstances are so terrible, as we've read, that he is literally saying it would be better if I had not been born. So now his friend is going to answer. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, "If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet who can keep from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who is stumbling, and you have made firm the feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you are impatient. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember, who that was innocent ever perished? Or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. The roar of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lions are broken. The strong lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. Now a word was brought to me stealthily, my ear received the whisper of it. Amid thoughts from visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes, there was silence. Then I heard a voice. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? Even in his servants he puts no trust, and his angels he charges with error. How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed like the moth. Between morning and evening they are beaten to pieces. They perish forever without anyone regarding it. Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? Do they not die, and that without wisdom? Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Surely vexation kills the fool, and jealousy slays the simple. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I curse his dwelling. His children are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate, and there is no one to deliver them. The hungry eat his harvest, and he takes it even out of thorns, and the thirsty pant after his wealth. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble spout from the ground, but man is born to trouble, as the sparks fly upward. As for me, I would seek God, and to God would I commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth, and sends waters on the fields. He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope at noonday, as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword of their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts her mouth. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves. Therefore despise not the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He shatters, but his hands heal. He will deliver you from 6 troubles. In 7 no evil shall touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the lash of the tongue, and shall not fear destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh, and shall not fear the beasts of the earth. For you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is at peace, and you shall inspect your fold and miss nothing. You shall know also that your offspring shall be many, and your descendants as the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave in ripe old age, like a sheaf gathered up in its season. Behold, this we have searched out. It is true. Hear and know it for your good. Interesting. So this friend comes. Well, so 3 friends come, right? And they sit down with Job. Job has an interaction with his wife, and his wife encourages him, curse God and die, right? So she, in the story, kind of senses like Job's not cursing God. Maybe cursing God would bring an end to this, and just put it to rest, right? So she says, just put yourself out of your misery. Curse God and die. And he refuses to do that, right? But his friend sits down with him, and his friend starts to encourage him in a couple ways. So one thing his friend says is, hey, God doesn't treat good people like this. But then he continues and says, hey, hold on, because if you are still right with God, God's going to restore you. And so that's through the end of Job 5, and that will conclude us for today. And next time we'll jump in Job 6 through 9 and kind of see Job's response here to his first friend. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure. I hope this has been beneficial to you. I've enjoyed it, and that's it for today. So